This year, actually this morning, I saw that we only had one day in August over 100 degrees. So every time we would really start to crank up, there'd be a front like this come through, and it's, you know, partly cloudy and 83 degrees or something like that. So we haven't really, every time our grass has really started to toughen, we've got a little wet spell. We got about a ½ inch of rain night before last and a ½ inch this morning. That's not a real water maker. It didn't run anything, but it freshens a little bit, and that's the nice thing. One of the real advantages of these rotational systems is that grass that's rested, there's nothing going to bite that off. Once they leave, nothing's going to be back in there for 21 days to 28 days. And so depending on the rotation we're in. So that grass has a chance to bring back some new growth. And so when they move from here, they will go eat regrowth everywhere. Traditional grazing, they're going to eat the same spot all summer. And they will only move out of that spot if there's absolutely nothing there. With this rotational system, every time we move them, it's almost like a mini flush. And I think it really gives our cows a little advantage during the summer months, because if you do get a rain, you get some help on your, you know, not only with the natives, but some of these pastures have some Korean lespedeza, which is a little legume that has a lot of protein in it, and it'll kind of pop and give a little extra protein, and plus the regrowth you get to benefit from. So the rotational system really helps during those summer months. If you can just get a rain once in a while, you'll get yourself some better grazing going back around. You know, we've always heard of cell grazing and intensive double stock, that kind of grazing with yearlings. That really never worked real well because our weather's too unpredictable. But we were getting into a dry year, and I visited with my dad, and I suggested that we put our groups together, move them through as one and rest behind them. And when that summer, and it wasn't a full-blown drought, it was just kind of a dry, hot summer. And that summer, we had as much grass through a really pretty severe little dry spell rotating as we would have traditional grazed in a normal year. And I told him we're going to do this and learn more about it and expand it as we expand. And it's been a good tool for us because it gives you so much flexibility. You know, we can come in the winter during dormancy and even off some of these pastures. We can stockpile where we're going to calve out, so these cows all calve out in big grass. You reduce your chances of having scours and sickness in these babies because everybody's calving in a place. We'll calve in a place they won't have been in for 4 months. You know, they'll not been where they're calving at since about January. So they got a nice clean bedding all over that pasture, and so there's just that whole rotational thought. Every time you that first year or two, every time we made a circle, there was some more stuff that kind of clicked, that there's some real benefit in this. And now we've been doing it, you know, for a number of years, and still you're kind of like, this is a real good tool for us, you know. And not everybody has the situations, but what we did was just kind of took the pastures we had and kind of put them all together in a grazable pile, and then based on acres sort out our days and just start. And then you have a pasture like in this rotation. The south end of this is basically all bluff, and it's not quite as strong, and so we adjust our days because one pasture will be a little better, one pasture won't have quite as much strength, and so you're going to tweak it as you go, but just start with what you got, and then as you go around each time, you're going to learn a little bit more, and after a few years, you'll start seeing, okay, we got a pasture that isn't as strong, we need to bump those days back a little. This pasture, we're kind of it's getting away from us, so we can take a couple of those days, put them here, take a couple and put them in this one. And, you know, over time, you end up with a pretty reliable rotation that you go through each time. And again, we even out a lot in the winter when it's dormant, because during dormancy, you're not going to bother anything. But in the case of this rotation, that south pasture actually has more acres, but it now has fewer days. And the reason is it's a lot of it is on shelf, and there's just not the soil there to produce the kind of grass that these others do. And so what we saw was, after a few years in there, we started seeing, you know, we're kind of just every year we're a little bit shorter, a little bit harder, and this pasture was getting a little bit away. And so we just took, you know, a couple days off of that, put in here and flipped them, and now we're pretty even and on what we're doing with them.